The sun was a merciless fist, pounding my back as I stumbled over the cracked earth, each step kicking up dust that choked my throat like a final betrayal. "You're not my grandson anymore," Grandma's voice echoed in my skull, her words sharper than the thorns snagging my jeans. Words she'd hurled before shoving me out of the old Ford pickup, the door slamming like a coffin lid on the life I'd known. I was 17, alone in the Arizona Badlands, and the only thing keeping me upright was the ragged beat of my heart screaming that I was still Harrison goddamn Ellis, queer as a $3 bill and too stubborn to die. That first night, huddled against a jagged boulder as the temperature plunged like a knife, I replayed it all in feverish loops. We'd been driving back from church in Tucson. Grandpa behind the wheel, his Bible-thumping knuckles white on the steering, Grandma in the passenger seat clutching her rosary like it could exorcise the devil she'd seen in me. It started with a phone call from my cousin in Phoenix, the one who'd caught me kissing a boy at a high school bonfire. "He's one of those," she'd whispered into the receiver, her voice dripping Southern Baptist venom. And just like that, the floodgates cracked. "You're sick, Harrison?" Grandpa had growled when we pulled over at a gas station, his face purple under the brim of his Stetson. "The Lord's got no place for abominations like you." I tried to explain, stammering about how it wasn't a choice, how I'd hidden it for years under flannel shirts and fake crushes on cheerleaders. But they weren't hearing it. Grandma's eyes, usually soft with lemon bars and bedtime stories about Jesus, had hardened into flint. "We're fixing this," she'd said, and fixed it they did. A detour into the Sonoran Desert, miles from any road, where the saguaros stood like silent witnesses to their Old Testament justice. They didn't just leave me. They stripped me first. Wallet, phone, even the silver cross necklace Grandma had given me for my baptism, all tossed into the truck bed like trash. "Walk it off, boy. Pray for forgiveness." Grandpa spat, and then the engine roared to life, tires spitting gravel as they vanished in a cloud of red dust. I stood there, the horizon swallowing them whole, my pulse thundering louder than the fading rumble. Walk where? Pray to what? The sky was an endless blue bruise, the ground a furnace baking my sneakers' soles. Dehydration hit fast, lips splitting, vision blurring at the edges. But anger was my canteen, bitter and bottomless. By dawn, I'd covered maybe 5 miles, following the faint scar of a dry wash that promised water it never delivered. Vultures circled lazy overhead, black specks mocking my crawl. I thought of Mom and Dad, gone 3 years now in that car wreck on I-10, how they'd hugged me tighter after, whispering I'd always have a home. But home was them, and now it was ashes. Grandpa and Grandma had raised me since, in their clapboard house on the outskirts of Bisbee, a mining town where copper veins ran deep but tolerance ran shallower. I'd loved them once, fished with Grandpa at Patagonia Lake, baked pies with Grandma on Sundays, but love's a fragile thing when it curdles into fear. A rattlesnake's warning buzz snapped me from the haze, its coils tight around a sun-bleached rock. I froze, heart slamming ribs, and backed away slow, palms scraping shale. That's when I saw it. A glint in the distance, metal catching the rising sun. A truck? Rescue? Hope surged like bad moonshine, burning sweet and false. I pushed harder, legs leaden, lungs rasping, until the shape resolved. A rusted border patrol truck, abandoned years ago, its hood propped open like a gutted beast. No keys, no water, just faded stickers warning no trespassing, in peeling Spanish and English. I collapsed inside the cab, the vinyl seat scorching my thighs, and wept for the first time. Not for them, but for the boy I'd been, the one who'd dreamed of escaping to San Francisco or New York, where men like me could hold hands without whispers. Hours blurred into a delirium of heatstroke whispers. I hallucinated Dad's voice, gravelly from Marlboros, telling me to keep your chin up, kid. Mom's laugh, light as desert wind, promising we'd road trip to the Grand Canyon someday. But reality clawed back when thunder rumbled. Impossible in July. Yet there it was, a freak monsoon brewing over the superstitions. Dark clouds boiled like ink in water, and rain came sudden, a silver lash across the parched earth. I scrambled out, mouth open to the sky, gulping what I could before it turned to mud. It saved me, that storm. Filled a shallow tanaja nearby, enough to sip and stagger on. 2 days in, I hit a dirt road, tires tracks fresh enough to follow. My body was a ruin. Blistered feet, sunburn peeling in sheets, stomach a hollow roar. But I sang to keep sane. Old Johnny Cash tunes Grandpa loved, twisted into anthems of spite. I walked the line, but the line was mine now, queer and unyielding. At dusk on the 3rd, headlights pierced the gloom. A battered Chevy Silverado, slowing as the driver. A rancher with a salt and pepper beard and eyes like weathered oak, leaned out. "Jesus, kid, you look like hell warmed over. Hop in." His name was Roy, a Vietnam vet running cattle near Globe. He didn't pry much, just handed me a thermos of tepid coffee and a protein bar that tasted like salvation. "Family trouble?" he grunted as we bounced toward pavement. I nodded, throat too raw for lies. By the time we hit the ER in Mesa, I'd spilled enough, the abandonment, the why of it, for the docs to call it elder abuse. Cops came, social services too, but Grandpa and Grandma vanished like smoke, their house empty, a for sale sign stabbed in the yard. "They lit out for Texas," the Bisbee sheriff said later, shaking his head. "Bible Belt calls 'em home." Foster care swallowed me next. A group home in Phoenix, full of kids with scars deeper than mine. I turned 18 there, legal but lost, working odd jobs. Bussing tables at a diner off Central Avenue, stocking shelves at a Circle K. Nights, I'd stare at the ceiling fan whirring like vultures, wondering if survival was mercy or curse. That's when Charles found me, or I found him, depending on the lie you tell yourself. It was a rainy October, the kind that turns Phoenix streets to rivers of red clay. I ducked into a hole-in-the-wall coffee shop called the Beanstalk, nursing a black drip and sketching in a battered notebook. Doodles of deserts and boys with kind eyes. He was behind the counter, all lean muscle and easy grin, hair the color of wet sand curling at his nape. "You draw that?" he'd asked, nodding at my page. A saguaro embracing a storm cloud. I flushed, mumbling yes, and he slid a scone my way, on the house because artists gotta eat. Charles Rivera, 21, barista by day, graphic design student by night, with a laugh that cut through monsoon gloom like sunlight. Mexican-American roots, raised in the barrios of South Phoenix, but his world was bigger. Posters of Frida Kahlo and James Baldwin tacked to his apartment walls. Playlists mixing Selena with Sufjan Stevens. We talked for hours that first night, rain drumming the tin roof, him sharing stories of his abuela's tamales and the aunt who'd disowned him for dating a guy in high school. "Family's a crapshoot," he said, eyes dark with old hurt. "But you pick your own." Our first real date was a hike in the Superstition Mountains, ironic given my history. He packed chorizo sandwiches and horchata in a backpack, teased me about my fear of heights as we climbed Flatirons slick with dew. At the top, overlooking canyons carved by time, he kissed me, soft, tentative, tasting of cinnamon and courage. "You're safe here," he whispered, and for the first time since the desert, I believed it. Love bloomed slow, like yucca after rain. Stolen afternoons in his tiny studio, bodies tangled in thrift store sheets, hands mapping freckles and scars. Not fire, but hearth warmth against the cold I'd carried. But peace is a luxury for survivors, and mine shattered 6 months in. Grandpa's letter arrived like a rattler's strike, forwarded through the group home. Yellowed envelope, his spidery script demanding I repent or rot. He'd heard whispers, through church gossip no doubt, about that boy in Phoenix keeping company with sinners. Charles read it aloud, voice steady, but his hands shook. "We burn it?" he asked. I wanted to. God, I did, but something twisted in me. A hook of blood, unyielding. "No." "We answer." We drove to Bisbee that spring, the old Ford I'd bought with tip money rattling like bones. The house was sold, but neighbors pointed us to the RV park on the edge of town, where Grandpa and Grandma wintered now, parked among snowbirds with faded awnings. They looked smaller, shrunken by time. Grandpa's shoulders hunched under arthritis, Grandma's hair a silver halo gone gray at the roots. "Harrison," she breathed as we pulled up, eyes wide in the screen door. The prodigal. Confrontation hit like a haboob, sudden, blinding. Grandpa wouldn't look at me, fists clenched on his lazy boy, muttering psalms under his breath. "We did it for your soul," Grandma pleaded, tears carving tracks in powder. The desert. It was to purge the evil. Charles stood sentinel at my side, hand warm on my elbow, but I felt the fracture. Love warring with loathing, forgiveness a mirage. "You left me to die," I said, voice cracking like dry earth, "for loving who I love." Grandpa's retort was venom. "It's not natural. You'll burn eternal." That's when Charles broke. Not with anger, but quiet fury. Natural? Like abandoning your own blood in the godforsaken heat? You're the ones burning, old man, in your hate. The air thickened, accusations flying like sand. My choices, their duty, Charles's influence. Grandma clutched her cross, sobbing for the boy I'd been, but I saw it clear. Their love was a cage, gilded with scripture. We left as dusk fell, the RV's lights winking farewell, my chest hollow but lighter. Summer brought heat waves that tested us, Phoenix asphalt bubbling under tires. Charles and I chased dreams. Him interning at a design firm downtown, me enrolling in community college for art classes, charcoal sketches turning to oils of resilient landscapes. But betrayal lurked, patient as a coyote. It came via my cousin, the same one who'd snitched, now engaged, inviting us to her wedding in Sedona. Family heals. Her email cooed, laced with passive barbs about moving on. Charles urged caution. I, fool that I was, saw redemption. The wedding was a white lace farce under red rock spires. Vows exchanged amid canyon echoes. Relatives nodded polite hellos, but whispers slithered. That's the one they left for dead. Grandpa and Grandma were there, seated stiff in the back pew, her hand on his knee like an anchor. Post-ceremony, under string lights strung like stars, they approached. Grandma first, arms outstretched. We've prayed, Harrison. Come home. The hug was frail, scented with lavender and regret, and for a heartbeat, I leaned in. But Grandpa's eyes, over her shoulder, gleamed cold. Later, in the hotel bar, he cornered Charles alone. I'd stepped out for air, lungs tight from champagne toasts. Leave him be, Grandpa hissed, voice low thunder. He's weak without us. You'll drag him to hell. Charles laughed it off at first, but the seed took doubt, that insidious weed. Days later, back in Phoenix, he pulled away. Late nights at the studio, texts curt as barbed wire. It's nothing, he'd say, but his touch cooled, mirrors reflecting a stranger. The break came on a July dawn, heat already pressing like a thumb on glass. I can't do this, Charles said, packing his duffel in our shared apartment. His apartment really mine by grace. Your family's poison. It seeps in. Lies tumbled. The internship too demanding, us too young, but the truth coiled underneath. Grandpa's words, burrowing like cholya spines. Betrayal, not from blood this time, but chosen kin. I begged, bartered pieces of myself. I'll cut them off, for good. But he was gone, door clicking shut like that desert pickup. Grief hit harder than heat stroke, a drought of the soul. I wandered Papago Park at midnight, saguaros silhouetted against city glow, howling questions at indifferent stars. Why survive the unsurvivable just to lose the one who'd pulled me from the brink? College faltered. Sketches gathered dust. Then, a call, from Grandma, voice quavering over static. Your grandpa, he's dying. Liver. Come, please. The drive to Bisbee was a blur of monsoon flashes, wipers slapping rhythm. The RV reeked of Benghazi and regret. Grandpa skeletal in his recliner, oxygen mask hissing like accusations. Harrison, he rasped, eyes milky but piercing. No apology, not outright, just a hand extended, trembling. I was wrong, scared. Grandma wept beside him, clutching photos. Me as a gap-toothed kid, fishing pole high. We talked fractured hours, about Dad's laugh, Mom's pies, the desert's mercy. God don't hate you, he whispered at last. I did that. Charles's shadow loomed unspoken. I wrote him letters, unsent, pages filled with desert metaphors. How we'd been an oasis, now cracked dry. Fall turned to winter, Grandpa fading gentle, buried under a copper sun with full church pews, even mine. Grandma sold the RV, moved to a bungalow near me, her hugs tentative bridges. Family's messy, she'd say over coffee, her cross glinting softer now. Healing's no straight highway twists through Saguaro National Park, where I hiked alone, sketching the scars on cacti bark. Charles resurfaced that spring, a chance encounter at the beanstalk, his grin hesitant as new growth. Heard about your grandpa. Sorry. We talked neutral ground, art shows, monsoon forecasts. No grand reunion, but a seed, coffee turning to walks, walks to hands brushing accidental. By summer's end, we'd rebuilt cautious. Him admitting Grandpa's venom had echoed his own buried fears, me forgiving not for them but me. Love returned tempered, like steel in desert forge, deeper, unyielding. We drove the old Ford to the spot they'd left me. Coordinates etched in memory, now marked by a lone plaque, survivors stand. No ghosts, just wind-sculpted peace. I stand here now, 25, Charles's arm around my waist. The sun a warm palm, not fist. Survival wasn't luck. It was choice. To rise from dust, love fiercely. Forgive not to forget, but to free. The desert taught me that heat forges, doesn't break. And in America's vast heart, where canyons whisper secrets to the sky, I found my place. Not handed, but hard won. Wait, no, that's not the end. Stories like mine don't wrap neat. They loop, like the switchbacks of South Mountain, testing your grip. That plaque at Survivor's Stand? Charles and I bolted it ourselves last fall, after a ceremony with just Grandma and a park ranger who'd lost a son to hate crimes. To all who walk through fire, the inscription reads, etched copper veined like Grandpa's hands. But peace is fleeting in a land of extremes. Monsoons that flood washes, winds that strip paint from billboards. And betrayal? It has a way of circling back, coyote cunning. It started with a job offer for Charles. A design gig in LA, plum portfolio builder with a firm scouting indie films. 6 months tops, he said. Eyes alight over takeout burritos. I nodded, stomach nodding like mesquite roots. Phoenix had become home. Our shoebox apartment off Roosevelt Row, murals exploding color on every wall, street tacos from vendors who'd high-five me by name. But LA? Siren call of queer meccas, where pride floats dwarf canyons and acceptance is as common as traffic jams. Go, I urged, masking the tremor. I'll visit. Weekends. He left in October, U-Haul groaning under canvases and cacti pots. Our goodbye was airport banal. Chaste kiss at security, promises via FaceTime. At first, it hummed, him gushing about Silver Lake coffee roasts, me sharing sketches of monsoon-swollen Salt River. Grandma baked empanadas for my empty nest. Her way of mothering without smothering. But distance is a slow poison. Pixels can't replicate the brush of his thumb on my jaw. By Thanksgiving, cracks spiderwebbed. His calls shortened, crazy day, babe, and my texts piled unanswered. I drove to Sedona for air. Red Rock's a balm for frayed nerves, but solitude amplified echoes. Grandpa's rasp. Family pulls you under. Back home, a mutual friend from art class spilled casual. Saw Charles at a WeHo bar last week, with some guy, cute producer type. My laugh was brittle glass. Coincidence, I told myself, networking in a city of sharks. December brought proof, cruel as a Christmas cactus thorn. A tagged photo on Instagram. Charles, arms slung around a lithe stranger with cheekbones like switchblades. Caption, new muse, new moves elevibes. Stomach acid rose. I scrolled deeper, timelines sinking like accusations. Late night DMs, flirty emojis. A story clip of them dancing at the Abbey, bodies close as lovers. Betrayal, round 2. Not desert abandonment, but the softer stab of chosen love curdling. I confronted via video, screen grainy as his excuses. It's nothing, Har. Just friends. LA's intense. You know how it is. His eyes dodged, background a blur of Hollywood Hills glamour. Come home, I pleaded, voice raw. Or I will. Silence stretched. Then, maybe we need space. It's heavy. Heavy, like carrying your own corpse through heat haze. I hung up, deleted the app, and drove blind, furious, to the one place that understood ruin. The desert welcomed me like an old scar, pulling off Route 60 into the Tonto National Forest fringes. No plan, just a cooler of water, sketchpad, and the Ford's rattling heart. I hiked till dusk, thorns drawing blood on calves, sun dipping low to gild hoodoos in gold. There, amid petrified logs and whispering junipers, I broke. Not quiet tears, but bellows that scattered quail. Why me? Why again? The stars emerged indifferent. Milky Way a spilled sugar trail. And in that void, memories flooded. Charles's first, I love you, under a saguaro's arms. His fingers tracing my desert tattoos. Ink of a rising phoenix I'd gotten post-breakup one. Dawn found me feverish, not from heat but hollow. A hiker, solo woman with a golden retriever, stumbled on me at a trailhead, shared her granola and a listening ear. Sounds like he lost his way, she said, bandaging a gash on my shin. But you're still on yours. Her words stuck, burr-like, as I limped back to civilization. Phoenix greeted gray, rain sluicing streets, washing murals to vibrant smears. Grandma's bungalow was lighthouse steady. Mijo, she said, pulling me into flower-dusted arms. She'd been experimenting with conscious, her post-grandpa therapy. Over tea I spilled, the photo, the call, the desert vigil. She listened, rosary beads clicking soft. Then, betrayal's the devil's favorite tool. But forgiveness? That's God's. Not scripture this time, but memory. How she'd nursed Grandpa through his rages, loving fierce despite. Call him, she urged. Not to beg, to close. I did. From her porch swing, monsoon mist beating the phone. Charles answered wary. Har. No lies, I cut in. You chose LA, chose him. I choose me. Pause. Then his voice cracked. It was escape. From the weight, your family, the desert story everyone knows now. I thought, lighter here. Lighter? Like shedding skin? We talked hours, truths peeling layers. His fear of commitment rooted in his aunt's rejection. My clinging born of loss. No reunion but release. Friends, maybe. Someday. Winter thawed slow. I threw into art. A series for a local gallery. Desert forged. Canvases of cracked earth birthing blooms. Figures entwined yet scarred. Opening night. January chill nipping heels. The space hummed. Murals come alive in oils. Red dots multiplying like fireflies. Critics murmured, raw, resilient. But the real win was Charles's text post-show. Photo of my flyer. Proud of you. Miss this Harrison. Bridge mended? Not yet, but span visible. Spring bloomed defiant. Grandma and I planted a garden. Chiles, tomatoes, zinnias nodding pink against adobe walls. She shared stories I'd never heard. Grandpa's youth, wild in Nam foxholes, coming home queer-curious himself, buried under machismo. He loved hard, failed harder, she said, pruning shears snipping clean. Humanize them, not saints but sinners fumbling light. Charles returned for a weekend in April. Scouting fonts excuse thin as spring fog. We met neutral, South Mountain Trail, dawn patrol with thermoses steaming. Awkward at first. Hikes halting, silences thick. But the canyon coaxed confessions. I sabotaged us, he admitted, pausing at a vista where cities sprawled infinite. Scared of your strength. Thought it'd eclipse me. I laughed, bittersweet. Eclipse? Nah, we'd eclipse the world together. That night, over rooftop tacos, walls crumbled. Not passion's blaze, but embers rekindled. Talk till stars wheeled. His head on my shoulder, city pulse sinking breaths. He stayed the week, LA gig extended remote. Betrayal scar puckered. but scars toughen. Yet drama's no respecter of men's. May brought cousin Lila's baby shower, hers now, post-wedding bliss. Invitation laced with all family welcome. Grandma pushed, "Go, showing." Charles, solid, "We go." Sedona again, but this time armored, his hand in mine, public claim. The shower was pastel purgatory. Pink balloons bobbing like buoys, ants cooing over sonograms. Whispers followed. "That's him, the desert boy." Lila air-kissed cheeks, eyes flicking to Charles like inventory. Then Grandpa's old deacon. Face seemed as Badlands. Cornered us by the charcuterie. "Still leading him astray?" He sneered at Charles, breath sour with punch. Charles bristled, but I stepped forward, voice steady. "No one's leading. We're walking. Together." Uproar rippled. Gasps. A dropped deviled egg. But Lila's mom defused, herding guests to cake. Outside, under cottonwoods shedding fluff like snow, Charles exhaled. "Proud." I nodded, pulling him close. "Always." Summer crested hot, our rhythm settling. Him freelancing from the apartment, me adjunct teaching at the college, evenings sketching his profile by lamplight. But the desert calls eternal, and one weekend, we answered. Camping in the Chiricahuas, granite spires thrusting skyward like accusations resolved. There, by campfire crackle, he proposed, not ring but promise. A custom sketch pad, leather-bound, first page my portrait of us. 2 figures against sunset dunes, hands linked. "Mare mi, hor." Not tomorrow, but when the heat breaks. Tears stung, smoke-veiled. Yes, when the stars align. Autumn winds whispered change, stripping mesquites bare as we planned. Nothing lavish, a courthouse elopement with Grandma as witness, maybe a reception at the Beanstalk with tamales and 2-buck chuck. Charles dove into invites, his design eye turning lists to art. Embossed cards evoking canyon folds. Me? I buried in a commission. A mural for a Phoenix queer youth center, walls transforming from blank stucco to tapestries of survival. Phoenixes rising from ash, lovers silhouetted against haboobs. But fate's a trickster Arizona bred. News hit mid-October. Lila's husband, in a DUI smash on 89A, gone instant. She called me the family pariah, voice shattered over sobs. "Harrison, please, the baby's coming early. I need everyone." Charles and I drove that night, monsoon remnants slicking blacktop, radio murmuring loss anthems. The hospital in Flagstaff was sterile purgatory. Beeps sinking heartbeats, coffee vending stale as regret. Lila, pale in a gown, clutched my hand. First real touch since childhood tag games. "I was wrong," she whispered, contractions wincing her words. "About everything." The baby arrived at dawn. A girl, tiny fists flailing like desert blooms. Named Elena, after her abuela. Family trickled in. Aunts dabbing eyes, uncles awkward with cigars. Even the deacon prayed neutral, his fire banked. Grandma held Elena first, cooing Spanish lullabies, then passed to me. Weight of her warm, wriggling, cracked something ancient. "She's got fight," Charles said, peering over, his finger dwarfed by her grip. Lila watched, eyes soft. "Stay? For the funeral." We did, burying her man under ponderosis, eulogy a mosaic of his kindnesses. Coach to neighborhood kids, volunteer at the food bank. No sermons on sin, just a community grieving, hands clasped across old divides. Back in Phoenix, the mural waited, brushes crusted, scaffold dusty. But Lila's call lingered, pulling threads. She moved south, bunking with us interim, her grief a quiet storm. Nights we'd talk on the balcony. Her wedding jitters, my desert nights, shared shames of family scripts we'd outgrown. Charles bonded odd, him sketching nursery prints, her critiquing colors with toddler Elena on hip. "You're good for him," she told me once, nursing a Zinfandel. For us, November's chill bit early, but warmth brewed domestic. Thanksgiving at Grandma's, table groaning under turkey and pozole, Elena gurgling in a high chair. Toasts veered vulnerable, Grandma to second chances, Charles to chosen fires. Lila raised her glass. To surviving what shouldn't be survived. Eyes met mine, hers brimming apology. Later, washing dishes, she hugged fierce. Forgive me? For starting it all. Water ran hot. I nodded, suds slipping. Already did. Yet conflict simmers subsurface, like aquifers tap dry. December brought Charles's ex from L.A., the producer, sleek as a sidewinder, in town for holidays. He showed at the Beanstalk unannounced, ordering lattes with a wink, then cornering Charles in the back. I walked in mid-flirt, arm graze, laugh too intimate, and the air ionized, old wounds suppurating. What the hell? I hissed later, apartment thick with pine from our scrub tree. Charles flushed, defensive. Networking. He's got leads. Lies thin as tinsel. The ex texted relentless. Party invites. Catch-up dinners. Charles deleting half, replying to the rest. Doubt crept. Venomous. Was LA's pull eternal? Our bond just desert mirage? New Year's Eve tipped the scale. A bash at a warehouse in the warehouse district. Murals pulsing under strobes. Queer anthems thumping bass. We went armored. Me in a thrifted velvet jacket. Him in slim chinos, hands laced defiant. But the ex slithered in. Champagne flute high, toasting old flames. Charles tensed, but engaged, shop talk turning personal, bodies leaning close in the crush. I bailed to the rooftop, city fireworks blooming brutal over sprawl. Cold air clawed lungs. Below, revelry mocked. Charles found me breath fogging. Wait. Choose, I said, voice steel. Him or us? His face crumpled. New Year bells tolling distant. You, always. But words hollow without proof. January tested. The ex ghosted, but residue clung. Charles's glances to his phone, late work calls. I threw into the youth center, paint splattering overalls, kids' voices a chorus. That the gay desert guy? Stories swapped. Runaways, rejections, mirroring mine, forging solidarity. One boy, 16 with eyes like fractured quartz, shared his, outed by a pastor uncle, couch surfing now. How'd you not break? He asked, roller dripping cerulean. Broke plenty, I admitted, but pieced stronger. Charles saw it, the mural unveiling, walls alive with hope, ribbon cut by that boy. Pride swelled his chest. That night, he burned bridges, blocked numbers, deleted apps, a bonfire of vanities in our sink. No more escapes, he vowed, arms banding me tight. You're my north. Spring unfurled tentative. Elena's first steps on our balcony, wobbling to zinnias. Lila dating cautious, a barista with easy charm. Grandma's garden thrived, Child's fiery as her faith renewed. Now inclusive. A PFLAG meeting in her living room. Folding chairs creaking under new allies. But high tide waits no bloom. May's heat wave scorched records. Phoenix a skillet. AC units wheezing surrender. News broke local. A hate crime in Mesa. 2 queer teens jumped leaving a prom after-party. 1 critical. Protests erupted. Marches down Central. Signs thrusting love winds skyward. Charles and I joined. Signs handmade. Mine a sketch of intertwined hands against flames. His no more deserts. The rally peaked chaotic. Counter-protesters jeering from sidelines. Slurs slinging like stones. A bottle sailed, shattering near, glass shards biting ankles. Panic surged. Charles shoved me behind, body shield, but a fist connected. His jaw, bloom of blood. Chaos. Cops kettling, chants drowning screams. We escaped to an alley, him spitting crimson, me binding with my bandana. Worth it, I gasped, pulse hammering. His grin, crooked. Every bruise. That night, bruised but unbroken, we planned deeper. The wedding, now summer, courthouse swapped for a desert chapel. Neutral ground, vows under open sky. Invites finalized. Lila as maid of honor, grandma officiant via online ordination. Youth center kids as ring bearers. June's solstice sun crowned it. We drove the Ford, restored now, chrome gleaming, to a pullout near survivor stand. wildflowers rioting post-rain. A justice of the peace waited, robe billowing, with our circle. 10 souls strong, picnic baskets unpacked on a checked blanket. Vows simple. Charles, I choose your heat, every dawn. Me, your hand in mine, through every storm. Rings exchanged, copper bands veined like canyons, sealed with a kiss salt-tinged by tears. Cheers erupted, Elena clapping pudgy hands, Lila snapping Polaroids. Grandma prayed inclusive, wind carrying words to horizons. Cake was tres leches, sticky sweet under stars emerging early. But romance's afterglow fades to reality's grind. July baked us. Charles's freelance dried up, gigs ghosting. My adjunct pay stretched thin, Elena's daycare a line item bleeding red. Arguments sparked. Petty at first, over grocery runs, escalating to you never listen, hurled like haboob gusts. August climax crisis. Lila's barista boyfriend proposed. Impulse, Vegas chapel, and she accepted, whirlwind. But cold feet hit en route. What if it's wrong? She confessed over wine, Elena asleep between us. Charles counseled steady. Love's not perfect, it's persistent. Me? I saw mirrors. My desert, his LA flirts, and urged caution. Wait, breathe. She didn't. Wedding happened. Divorce papers followed by Labor Day, acrimony ugly, custody snarls, assets divvied spiteful. Lila crashed our couch, Elena colicky, her despair a black hole sucking light. Charles and I frayed, nights tag-teaming bottles, days job-hunting frantic. Resentment brewed. This is your family, he snapped once, slamming cabinets. I corrected, but the word hung hollow. September's equinox brought breaking point. A storm, literal, rare tropical remnant. Flooded streets, power out 3 days. Apartments sweltered, Elena wailing, us sniping over flashlight beams. I can't, Charles said at midnight, rain lashing windows. This load, it's crushing. Echoes of LA of doubt. Heart seized. Another desert, self-made. Morning cleared skies but not air. We sat kitchen table, coffee cold, truths bared. I'm scared, he admitted, of failing you like they did. I reached palm to palm. We fail together, or rise. Therapy followed, queer-affirming counselor in Tempe, sessions unpacking baggage. My abandonment armor, his escape hatches. October healed incremental. Lila relocated stable, a nanny share easing load. Charles landed a remote gig with a Tucson startup, designs for eco-brands. We hiked Camelback weekly, summit views reframing fights as flex. Human. Grandma called it over pie, her wisdom hard-won. November circled back, anniversary of my desert rebirth, rather. We marked it quiet. Drive to the Badlands, Charles at wheel, playlist weaving cash with queer anthems. At the spot, now plaque gilded, we spread a quilt, thermos of horchata steaming. Tell me again, he said, head on my lap, stars pricking velvet sky. I did. The abandonment raw, survival's grit, the vultures that didn't claim me. His fingers traced my wrist tattoo, phoenix curling eternal. My hero, he murmured, not pity, but reverence. Winter whispered expansions. Elena's second birthday, piñata bursting confetti like joy. Grandma's first pride float, rainbow boa clashing her pearls. Lila dated deliberate, a teacher this time, patient with tantrums. My mural series toured Phoenix to Tucson galleries, whispers of Santa Fe next. Charles's work bloomed, eco-logos greening billboards. But humanity's arc bends slow, and tension tautens strings. Spring 2026 brought national ripples. A Supreme Court case on conversion therapy bans, headlines screaming religious freedom versus queer rights. Protests swelled, Phoenix marches massive, our youth center ground zero. I spoke at one, voice amplified over megaphone. They left me for dead in the desert, but I rose. We all can. Applause thundered, but backlash bit. Anonymous calls to the center, slurs scrawled on walls. One night, post-rally, tires slashed on the Ford, message clear. Abomination. Charles fumed. but I felt it. Old heat rising, pulse desert dry. They're scared, I said, filing police report. Of us thriving. Summer tested steel. Elena started preschool, Lila's teacher proving steady. Engaged by July 4th, fireworks framing their porch kiss. Our wedding's 1 year. Vow renewal under the same sky. Just us two. Rings polished, promises deepened. Through betrayals, Charles added, unscripted. And beyond. August scorched, but opportunity cooled. A fellowship for me. Artist residency in Marfa, Texas, vast plains echoing Arizona voids. Go, Charles urged like I'd urged him. 6 weeks. We'll bridge. Doubt flickered distance's old ghost, but trust tempered it. I left Labor Day, Ford packed with easels, heart full. Marfa was otherworldly. Sky untrammeled, installations glowing prismatic at dusk. I painted furious, canvases of queer resilience, deserts birthing rainbows. Letters from Charles. Daily, inked confessions, Elena's crayon scribbles enclosed. Lila's wedding loomed. October, Sedona redux, but healed. Mid-residency, crisis pinged. Grandma's fall, hip fracture, slippery linoleum. Charles called frantic. She's okay, but come? Flights booked. I landed Phoenix jet-lagged, hospital antiseptic sharp. She gripped my hand, frail but fierce. Knew you'd come. Family, Mijo. Elena toddled in, Lila trailing, teacher fiancé lugging flowers. Recovery stretched, PT sessions, us rotating shifts. Charles juggled work, his patience saintly. This is us, he'd say, massaging her feet. October wedding went flawless. Lila radiant in boho lace, vows under arches of wild rose, Elena flower girl tripping giggles. I walked her aisle, honor reclaimed. Charles best man, toast rye. To messy loves that last. November homecoming. Marfa pieces shipped. First show booked for spring. But December dropped bomb. Charles's startup folded, layoffs, economy's whim. Job hunt crushed, rejections piling like dust bunnies. LA again? He joked, hollow. Panic clawed, bills mounting, Elena's tuition due. We fought fire with fusion, him pitching freelance collectives, me adjuncting plus private commissions. Youth Center rallied, fundraiser gala. My murals auctioned, proceeds padding our cushion. Community wove safety net. Potlucks with tamales, playdates easing Lila's load. New Year dawned deliberate. Resolutions scrawled joint. Trust the arc. Top line. January thawed freezes. Charles landed hybrid role with a Denver firm. Remote core, quarterly trips. Closer than LA, he grinned. February bloomed Elena's third. Party at Papago. Goats rented for chaos. Her cake smeared face like war paint. Spring surged verdant. My Santa Fe exhibit sold out. Desert queer. Forged in fire. Critics hailing, visceral humanity. Charles flew up. Frame on his arm. Pride beaming. You're unstoppable. Back home, we planted more. Community garden plot. Chiles side by side with neighbors' herbs. Yet climax crests unbidden. June's heat peaked biblical. Wildfires licking Tonto rims. Smoke choking sunsets to rust. Evac alerts blared. We packed go bags. Elena wide-eyed in her booster. But the real blaze? A letter. From Texas. Grandpa's old parish. Enclosing a check. Reparations fund. For the boy we failed. Anonymous, but Grandma's script on the note. From his estate. Use for good. Tears blurred ink. Betrayal's final twist. Posthumous grace. We donated half. To the center's crisis fund. Kept half for a down payment. Tiny adobe in South Phoenix. Walls ready for our marks. July cooled merciful. Monsoons drenching doubts. Elena started t-ball. Her swing fierce as yucca spines. Lila's wedding gift. A nursery mural. Me painting stars over crib. Charles and I weekend camped Chiricahuas again. Tent zipped against chill. Bodies aligned like constellations. August whispered futures. Talk of our own adoption seminars. Fostering queer youth. Scary? He asked, fire embers glowing. Terrifying, I admitted, but worth the heat. September equinox. Hike to survivor stand, Elena on shoulders, Lila and bow trailing. Plaque gleamed, windswept clean. This where? She asked, pointing footprints. Where I learned to live, I said, setting her down. Charles knelt, gathering pebbles, talismans, for each scar. October circled full. Lila's anniversary, us babysitting, Elena's stories tumbling toddler slurred. Grandma's hip mended strong. Her PFLAG chapter thriving. Meetings spilling laughter over lemon bars. November's chill nipped grateful. We drove Badlands once more. Ford humming faithful. Charles's hand on my knee. Sky bruised purple. Horizon swallowing day. Survived, he said, echoing title unspoken. I nodded, throat tight. And thriving. In America's sun-scorched soul, where deserts teach mercy's edge, we've carved oasis. From abandonment's ash, betrayal's burrs. Love's no fairy dust. It's grit, gathered daily. Harrison Ellis, queer survivor, husband, maybe father soon. Still walking lines, but now with partners plural. The heat forged us unbreakable. And in that forging, humanity gleams. Flawed, fierce, forever rising.